Second one with the whole setup, man.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm good. Mornings with kids are crazy, man.
Yeah. Mornings and bedtime.
I feel like once I get here, once I get to like the work portion of my day, I feel like I've lived 2 days.
Which is crazy for you? Crazier, morning or bedtime?
Morning.
Really?
Yeah. I think it's because of the time pressure on the back end of, so you got to do the whole morning thing. Breakfast, getting dressed, getting out the door. So I feel like there's a lot more time pressure on the front end, like a morning.
Right, because you could take 4 hours to put them to sleep.
Yeah.
But bedtime is crazy. Bedtime is crazy.
Yeah. Charlie, my wife, is opposite. She thinks bedtime is just crazy.
It is, but I see what you're saying. You have a deadline to get out the door. Let's say 8 or 8:30.
Yeah.
If you're late, then anxiety starts to pile up. But at the end of the day, you're not going anywhere. You're home.
Where do you fall, morning or night?
Bedtime is crazy for me.
Yeah.
I think because by the end of the day, I'm just done. I'm tapped out. I'm depleted.
Yeah.
So my energy reserves, my patience reserves, they just start going real bad. And yeah, in the morning, I'm a little bit crisper and I have a lot more energy, and that's easier.
Yeah. I mean, if you've been putting out fires and taking arrows all day, you get home, it's like nothing left sometimes.
Look, kids are great. Kids are, they're not just a blessing. They teach you the true meaning of love, right? Because it's not about you anymore. It's about someone else. They teach you patience. They teach you kindness. It's really pretty great.
Yeah. Last time we talked about directional accuracy. I think it might be a good dovetail into what we jump into today.
Let's get into it.
Yeah, and so with that directional accuracy, there's a Celtic poem. It's called "Prayer of Approach."
Prayer of Approach.
Yeah. So the context of this is like it can be as casual as meeting up a friend for coffee, entering a boardroom meeting, getting ready for a game. It's almost like a ceremonial mantra to help you enter whatever you're going to go into with.
It's like a pre-workout for the day.
Exactly. Pre-workout for the soul. So here it is. Celtic prayer of approach. I will honor your gods. I will drink your well. I bring an undefended heart to our meeting place. I will not negotiate by withholding. I'm not subject to disappointment, and I have no cherished outcome. And I think
if only it were that easy.
Yeah.
But I think what I get from that generally is like an open mind.
Yeah.
You're approaching any interaction, meeting, conversation with an open mind. I think what really stuck out to me in that word was the word undefended. Just totally vulnerable.
Why is the default to be guarded?
I mean, there's a lot of reasons to be guarded, but look, I think in business, no one's trying to hurt you, but everyone's looking out for themselves.
Sure.
And so if you're on the other side of that, you're constantly guarded. But it also has a lot to do with how we view interactions generally. People don't want to get hurt. Yeah. So in order to prevent pain, disappointment, there's always going to be a guard up. Now, to whatever extent that is a different story, but there's always going to be a guard up.
Yeah. How do you manage the guard? Do you know when you're over guarded? And what do you do about it if you can locate that?
I think it's about being aware.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're too guarded, you miss important moments of connection with people, your spouse, kids, employees. And connection is really, really important. It's, that connection that we have with other people. It's what humanizes us. Sure. So if you're too guarded, some people are louder when they're guarded. Some people are quieter. Some people are more anxious. But I think just being aware of where you are and the situation can give a whole new perspective on that, because relationships are about letting your guard down. Even performance. Yeah. We say this to our sales team, like performance is about letting your guard down. And to a certain extent, not trying to go too deep down the rabbit hole, but letting your guard down allows you to take some risks.
Yeah.
Because we're primed not to take risks because we're being careful. Because we're trying not to make mistakes and trying not to get hurt, in the context of the World Series. Just happened, right? Dodgers won. I'm not too happy about that, but those players took some risks. And in every game, someone took risks. Yeah. And it's about a balance of just taking enough risks that you're growing and you're uncomfortable, and that's okay. And so you're learning new things, and so your appetite for risk is growing. But being careful at the same time.
Yeah. Would you like kind of label yourself as naturally guarded? Or do you fall on the side of underguarded?
I guess it would have to depend on the situation and the time. Yeah.
Yeah.
On an emotional level, I'm probably very guarded. And that comes from a lot of past pain and hurt and trauma and not wanting to be hurt again.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people are like that. In business, I'm a big risk taker. I've been categorized by my friends and partners and mentors as a risk taker, which sometimes is a really good thing. Sometimes it's not a good thing. As long as you learn, I guess it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
As I'm getting older, I think my appetite for risk is decreasing.
Across the board or in certain areas?
Probably across the board, because I'm older, I'm tired. I know more than I knew 5 years ago, 10 years ago. I knew nothing back then. Yeah. And so now I use all that knowledge to make calculated risks. In everything from relationships, the people I'm friends with now. I wish I was friends with 20 years ago.
Sure.
And I won't just give my time to anyone because of what I've learned. So I think across the board, but I think that's something that happens with age.
Yeah. I don't know if recent events have made my perspective bias or if I've been this way longer than I can recall. But I'm recovering from being underguarded.
Not being guarded enough.
Yeah. I haven't quite put the details on that or even what to do with it at this point.
See, that's fascinating because you strike me as a very guarded individual.
Really?
Yeah, you're generally quiet. Your demeanor is more reserved.
Yeah.
More introverted.
Yeah.
So you would imagine that that's a...
Yeah, that's...
Guarded.
Mm-hmm. I think that's like, yeah, I see that as my projection. But wait, in intimate settings, I think I lean more towards like, yeah, until something crazy happens, it's all good. Like I trust. And I don't. That's a neutral statement. I don't even know what that implies. It's just what I'm currently experiencing, and I'm like, going back and forth on like, did I develop that? Was it innate? And what do I do with it moving forward?
I think it's a beautiful thing to be unguarded, and to be trusting, because so much of the world is so cynical.
Yeah.
Right. And that's a problem in and of itself. So I don't think it's a bad thing at all. If it makes you feel better. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like a liminal state, you know. I'm also, because I'm so close to it, like it's like a new, I guess, reflection of like seeing it from, I guess, third person, seeing how I am from a different view, and how being unguarded has left the door open for some painful events in my life. I think what the trepidation around it is like, okay, I don't want to over rotate too far of being overly guarded and having it turn into like a cold heart or like untrusting of everything, every situation, every person.
Oh, that's the opposite extreme.
Yeah. And those do come through. There are moments, you know, when it's like, man, I got burned so bad. What good reason is there for me to continue to lead with a trusting heart across the board?
Mm.
And that's a feeling or a mood that comes in because the pain is either like flares up or something happens. And again, I'm figuring it out as I go. It's like like in-flight adjustments. Such an interesting part of me right now is like, because I know what being truly undefended feels like and what that is like on a day-to-day basis because I've lived that. But because of the pain and recent events, I have a little bit of hesitation now, which is foreign to me, of like entering a relationship, whether that's friendship, business, or romantic. The default for me historically was like, I trust.
Mm.
And now it's like, I trust, but.
Mm. It's not a terrible place to be.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to trust with conditions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You just never want to get to a place where you only trust with conditions.
Mm.
You know, because being too guarded keeps us from connection.
Yeah.
I think you're going to miss a lot more from being guarded than how much you get hurt from being unguarded.
Yeah.
You know, it's impossible to prevent
Sure.
pain and betrayal and sadness, but think of how much you miss if you don't risk those pains.
Yeah, if you don't risk that, the pain is potentially greater.
From what you get from trusting.
Yeah. Yeah. So coming back to directional accuracy, let me tell you a story and then I'll have you reflect on it. There's a village by the sea, and an American businessman once encountered a fisherman unloading his daily catch. Curious, the businessman complimented the fisherman on the quality of his fish and asked him how long it took him to catch them. "Only a little while," replied the fisherman. The businessman then asked why he didn't stay out longer and catch more fish. The fisherman explained that he had enough to support his family's needs. When the businessman asked what he did with the rest of his time, the fisherman responded that he spent his days playing with his kids, taking siestas with his wife, and enjoying evenings with friends on the beach. The businessman, envisioning a grand opportunity, suggested the fisherman could spend more time fishing, buy more boats, and eventually run a large fishing enterprise. The fisherman, puzzled by the need for such expansion, asked what he would gain from it. The businessman explained that after many years, the fisherman would retire, live in a small village, and enjoy a simple life. And then the fisherman calmly replied, "Isn't that what I'm doing already?"
Where'd you get this story? Do you make this up?
No, I wish I could say yes, but no, I can't locate the source, but I've heard it in different settings and situations. It's kind of floating out there in the podcast and personal growth space.
That's terrible.
It is kind of a haunting story.
There's so much there though that I would love to know the source because it doesn't sound contrived. It's like, an American goes and sees a fishing village and automatically just sees dollar signs and and what he's pitching the fisherman is, you can have the most incredible life, and he's like, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sad on many levels. I think we're at war with the shelf life and the capacity of the entrepreneur these days. I think everyone wants to have a better life. Everyone wants to work hard, but we have been violently shoved into like this state of commercialization. Capitalism is the best thing ever, period, the end.
Yeah.
I don't even understand people who actually, to this day, look at all the failed socialist, communist experiments, of which there's dozens. They don't work. Ideally, it would work. In a perfect world,
It's good on paper, but in reality,
with perfect human beings who aren't greedy and who cannot be swayed, and it's great on paper, but it just doesn't work. So it's not that there's something wrong with capitalism. Actually, capitalism is the mechanism which creates jobs and wealth. But there's this fine line, like, most of the world works to live, right? We basically live to work. And I think that's what that story highlights, is that if you go anywhere else in the world, even in places of a lot of poverty, people are just totally fine with what they need for the day, the month, the year, to cover the family's needs, right? And it's not honestly necessarily a lack of opportunity, although that's a problem for sure.
Yeah.
But if you ask most people, they probably would respond like that. Wait, you want me to work for 60, 70 years, work my fingers to the bone so I could retire and enjoy a peaceful life?
Yeah. At first pass.
Sorry. I'm going to take this call. Just expecting it, saw the call, had to take it.
Yeah.
All right. That's great. We got to get him a thing.
My voice is like Alvin from Chipmunk.
Jeez, with the freaking Kobe. He's like,
He's having so
it's
much
these
fun.
freaking kids, bro. Like Jimmy does that shit with the turntables upstairs all day long, and he's distorting voices and echoes. And
At least give me the T-Pain.
yeah, man.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah,
right.
give me that, bro.
Auto-tune it,
Give me
right,
the auto-tune.
Right, like something fun. So yeah, look, it's tough. It's really, really tough, and that story highlights like what we're fighting.
I'm going to comment on that, come back to it. But one thing before we do, I really appreciate how you can pivot and drop in. Like not just here, but like being around you long enough now where you can go in like a firestorm and then come out and then drop into like, let's talk about scripture.
It's not as good as you think.
No, I know, but you do it. So the value is like doing it, right? Like some people just stay stuck in like the one thing and can't pivot out or can't be flexible. And it's like, okay, done with the meeting. Let's do this.
It's probably one of my only good qualities. Yeah, you're right. I can get off of a really level 11 out of 10.
Right.
Nasty, high stakes. And then, hey, what's going on? How you doing? How was your week?
Sometimes I think, is he crazy?
Sick. Yeah.
Like, are you, this guy's like not human.
Psychotic. Yes. No.
I say that half kidding, but like,
it's great because of what you just said, where like life is not about being stuck. You can't get stuck.
yeah.
And maybe that's the only good thing about it, because sometimes you do need to sit in things.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to sit in pain and joy and any of the, and just enjoy them and appreciate them before you pivot to the next thing.
Yeah.
I think it's especially helpful in business because business is just a lot of up and down and up and down and up and down, and you can't really stay up or down.
Yeah.
You got to pivot between the two in the middle at a moment's notice. So thank you.
Yeah, just putting you up on that. That's a great skill, whether it's innate or cultivated. So props to you.
You can cultivate it. And there's a lot of exercises people can do to get to good places.
Yeah. Yeah. Back to the fisherman story. One thing that came to mind was you read this the first time or you hear about it. I think the default for a lot, including myself the first time through, was, okay, the businessman's greedy and the Mexican fisherman is lazy or something like that. But, you sit with this long enough and you're like, well, there's layers. Because I think it comes down to like self-awareness for both of them. Like you said earlier, capitalism is great, and when leveraged as wisely as possible, creates opportunity, growth, connection, all that stuff. And so for the businessman, there's no context in this particular story, but for all we know, being an entrepreneur for him might be the best thing for him, and he does it well and wise. Maybe. The fisherman, like, I don't know, maybe he's doing that, but secretly wants to be an entrepreneur. I don't know. So I think it's like the self-awareness. If each of these people are self-aware enough to be like, yeah, this is exactly what is for me, then
there's a moral to the story.
Yeah.
Right? The story exists or was told or was contrived to say something. And I would have to say I probably agree with the moral of the story, which is we're doing all this stuff chasing something that we already have.
You're going to have to unpack that.
A lot of the times we're running around chasing what we already have. I'll be happy if. I'll consider my successful when. And we just put this list of achievements, and that's great. Having goals and ambitions is really, really important. Yeah. It's so important. But what if we were just grateful for what we had? So in this story, the fisherman's like, I got a fish, I can feed my family, I play with my kids now. Why do I want more? That hits deep with me.
Yeah.
Who historically has wished he could spend more time playing with his kids.
Yeah.
Who's busy building this empire for what?
Yeah.
So that I can retire and hang out with my 32-year-old kid who will have his own life and kid and won't have time for me when I'm 87? Like, why?
Yeah.
So
I think a lot, I won't say most because I don't know factually, but I think a lot of people in North America would have the same sentiment. Well, whether that's a different context and scale. I think it's like how is that applied, like realistically in North America? You know what I mean? Like you might side with the fisherman, like I already have what I want. This is good. Or a better question might be is why do we get caught up in the building an enterprise mental map?
So building is great and it's important and it's necessary. Because we can't just stay stuck like we were just talking about.
Yeah.
I just think it's deeper. I really do. I think gratitude is a big part of it.
Yeah.
I think if we were more grateful for the things we had, we would have less desire for things that we think we want, which oftentimes, I mean, I'm telling you, man, I've been there. Yeah. I've chased so much stuff that I thought would complete me. None of it did. I have chased positions and statures that when I thought I achieved, it would do something special inside of me, and it meant nothing. And another time in my life, the more money I made, the absolute emptier I was. It literally meant nothing. It's like, how much more can I get? You know, when you're 23, 24, making 50 grand a month, like, Like really, really, how much more can you get? Yeah, okay, you can own a private jet at 24. You could have liquid deposits in your bank account of 300 mil. Then what?
Yeah.
Like, how much stuff can you do?
Yeah.
How many parties? How many? Like, do you understand what I'm saying?
I do.
How much stuff can you have before you're like, oh, it's just more stuff? Mm-hmm. And then you get to that realization and you're like, okay, this is all just stuff.
I relate and I resonate. My curiosity is, what causes it to be so hard to not fall into that trap?
Yeah. People are generally go-getters and they want and they dream big and they have big visions. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's great. Wanting to accomplish, wanting to build, wanting to achieve. Even like when young people say like, I want to be rich. Is there anything wrong with that? Like my knee jerk is like, no, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be rich or wealthy or whatever word you want to use. There's nothing wrong with that. But why? Why is the question? Sure. Like why?
Yeah.
That's what changes the entire conversation.
Yeah.
Like if you just want to accumulate stuff, I mean, look, go to Bill Gates, Elon Musk, ask them if they have enough stuff. I don't know those guys personally, obviously. And those are two of the richest men on the planet, both like net worth but still liquid. Like they have money in their accounts.
Yeah.
I'm very confident that they would put a tangible limit on how much they like.
Yeah.
14 houses, 19 cars. I'm just throwing numbers out, but like, okay. Like
yeah.
I'm really confident not knowing anything about the real worldview of these guys.
Yeah.
I know what we read about and what we hear about, but that they would be like, yeah, it's like, there's like a limit to how much stuff you can have. Even net worth. What does that mean?
Yeah.
You're worth $9 gazillion. Okay. So what?
Yeah.
Because when you die, regardless of what you believe here, we can't see you take any of that stuff with you.
Right.
So it's like, at the end of the day, you're just another bundle of cells. I think a lot of people deeply and innately know that. So the question is why? Why do you want to be rich? Is it just to accumulate stuff? Obviously, I'm pretty sure the answer is no to almost everybody. No one's like, yeah, I just want to be rich so I can have whatever I want. Although there might be a minority out there. People want to be comfortable. People want to have freedom to do what they want. But even in that story, like it sounds like, and I would believe that fisherman has complete freedom.
Yeah.
So his freedom is like, I play with my kids. I do this, I do that. I have everything I need.
Yeah.
My family has sustenance that it needs. I have more than I need to provide. So there's nothing more to be achieved. Like, I would say, why do we build and build businesses? And probably ultimately the ultimate reason is, so if it's not stuff, it's like power, or power could mean freedom.
Yeah.
Could mean different things to different people. Freedom to do what you want, freedom to, travel, freedom to pursue other things, freedom to be a philanthropist,
Yeah.
That's, I actually know a lot of people who they actually live to build so that they can dictate how they give. It's actually really great, but that takes a lot of like time and building, and
sure.
you need to have money to do that. So I guess it all boils down to the why, like this businessman's why.
Yeah.
My question would be like, why?
Right.
If I could continue that story, the fisherman would say, why do you want to do all this? Like his response was like, I do this all now. I eat, I play with my kids, I live a peaceful life. So why does it need to be bigger for you to do that?
Right.
And that's a lot of my headspace.
Yeah.
Recently anyway. because in building so fast, I broke a lot of other things.
Sure.
And now faced with the reality of not having some of the things that I cared most about, it's like,
Yeah.
why? You know, Akon just released this song. I don't know how this works if I'm able to mention these names, but you might want to put one of these songs on some of these shorts. It's a beautiful life, and it's just beautiful lyrics.
Yeah.
The lyrics are just gorgeous. He says he's thanking God for joy, for pain, for sunshine, for rain. It's very simple, but and the chorus is it's a beautiful life, and it's all of those things, and it's the building, it's the breaking, it's the realization that everything I thought was important was not. I don't have to go so fast.
Yeah.
I mean, we could talk about that for hours.
Yeah. Pace, tempo matters.
But so that businessman in that story is like, he's just go, go, go. And the other guy's like, I'm just chilling by the lake, catching fish, playing with my babies.
Yeah. Coming to that realization, whether it's in proximal distance to someone you know or actually for yourself, it's reorienting to be like, yeah, I got what I want, like right now. I think that can be almost like a practice, right? For directional accuracy, as we were talking about. It's like, if you can at least ask the question, is like, do I have everything I need and potentially want right now?
And we just don't.
Yeah.
No one asks those questions.
Yeah.
Only really, really,
Yeah.
like the best of the best, probably, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And if you're 20 to 30 and you're asking yourself those questions,
Sure.
to try to assess where am I putting my energy and why,
Yeah.
you're killing it. You're out there listening and you're asking yourself, if I have everything I need, and do I need the things that I want?
Yeah.
You're killing it.
Right.
I wish I was asking those questions 10 years ago, because I would have saved myself a lot of heartache. And it's okay. I'm learning. I've learned.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes that's necessary. But asking those questions saves a lot of time.
Robert Waldinger, I think that's his name. He's a physician and potentially was part of like the longest study on happiness out of Harvard. I might be misquoting that, but that's what I'm recalling. But he mentions that wealth and power and status are like the aims because they're so easily measured.
Right. If you have more,
Yeah.
you're doing well. You have more money. You're probably happy. Yes.
Compared to moral, ethical aims that like, am I in love with my relationship? Gratitude, like things that are probably considered more on the softer science side or harder to measure.
I was going to say harder to quantify.
Right. And so that's why he kind of paints that picture of like, we all kind of know the fisherman's sentiment of like, yeah, I live a peaceful life. I got what I want. But he adds to it and saying like, it's so hard because it's as a culture, we don't really prioritize those measurements of like contentment or gratitude or respect. But wealth, power, and status are very easily quantifiable and also like put on a pedestal. Not to say they're inherently bad, but that's what's prioritized and commercialized. So people say, okay, it's easy to kind of check those boxes.
But I think you're slowly seeing a shift, and people are actually, and this is not today's topic, but it's coming. Mental health. I think mental health has shined, and the need for mental health and the push for good, stable mental health, because everyone's going through some kind of mental health issue. I think that's exposing some of the stuff that's harder to quantify.
Yeah.
Where it's like a lot of people are depressed, a lot of people have anxiety. I've gone through both. Why are we there? What are the things? Because There's a combination of ways to treat that, right? Therapy and medicine, antidepressants, all of that's fine. I'm not conspiracy theorist one way or another. Like sometimes there's chemical imbalances. Sometimes, a pill can do so much to help regulate in addition to diet and exercise and talking to someone. I think it's kind of like a multifaceted approach, but the simple fact of the matter is, the big spotlight on mental health is what are the things that are causing me to be unhappy? A lot of the times it's a lot of the things that we think are going to make us happy.
Yeah.
Wealth, status, power, just something as simple as social media.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a whole generation that just has gotten lost in social media, just scrolling on the screens for hours a day. They're thinking that is necessarily helping them and building them up. Not self-help stuff like this necessarily, but, seeing the best of everyone else's life and products, and it's making everyone depressed and it's making everyone super anxious. And so I think that stuff is getting easier to quantify in that we know generally, a lot of money is not going to make you happy.
Or the type of person I will potentially become in that pursuit.
Sure. You are a different person. Money can change people. Doesn't always. And there's a saying out there, I forget it, but it says money just magnifies the kind of person you already are. So if you're just a bad, nasty, greedy person, more money's not going to make you less of any of that.
Sure.
If you're generally a generous, benevolent, loving, kind, money's just going to be a tool for you to spread that.
Right.
So money is not the enemy.
Yeah.
Status, power, none of that is the enemy. The question is all the stuff that's really hard to quantify. It's like, what's inside? Why are we chasing these things?
It's the relationship to those things.
100%, and what we associate them with. Because money does not equal success. Far from it. Money does not equal success.
You're already going into the mental maps. Before I cue you up on a couple things, there's this quote from Dallas Willard. He's an American philosopher. A lot of his work was focused on the Christian tradition and like spiritual formation. And one of his more famous ones is that we're truly at the mercy of our own ideas. And there might be more commentary or context to what he said there, but I've seen it as a standalone. And I don't know if he did it on purpose or not, but the fact that there's no follow-up to that, I think is quite beautiful. Because now it's like...
It's very poignant.
Our ideas shape who we are.
100%.
And the mental maps are not necessarily, defaulted, but you can kind of shape that. You can kind of choose and shape the mental maps you decide to formulate, which, obviously dictates your experience.
There's a lot here. He didn't use the word thoughts. He used the word ideas.
Yeah.
We're at the mercy of our ideas. I mean, you see how the Holocaust happened. Some guy had an idea. I mean, talk about being at the mercy of an idea. That is so wrong.
Yeah.
Like objectively, but look what it caused. For how many years, like terrible world war. That was an idea. But ideas are rooted in thoughts. So that they're definitely related. Yeah. And we are ultimately at the mercy of our thoughts. 100%. So I don't want it to sound cliche, but like the quote, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like the quote that says, whether you think you can or you can't, you're right. Everything starts up here. Just to bring it back to, we were just talking about mental health, like everything starts up here. Everything starts up here. And our thoughts about ourselves, our thoughts about others, it is the king on the throne. are thoughts about wealth and money and what they can or cannot mean or represent. So to say that we are truly at the mercy of our ideas, one has to take captive his thoughts and ideas. And there's a lot here.
There's so much.
Like so much. I see a part 2 coming. So the book that I'm currently reading, A Silent Patriarch, about Pope Carolus VI, who was very deeply rooted in the teachings of a 3rd or 4th century ascetic by the name of St. Isaac the Syrian. St. Isaac the Syrian writes a lot about thoughts and how you have to master them. Because thoughts are the root of anxiety. We are anxious. I don't know what the quote is. It's another number. Like 95% of the things we're anxious about don't even ever actually happen.
Yeah.
It's just us perseverating on a thought. And so now the trick, and I've heard this used before, is you can imagine thoughts as cars on a 2-lane highway going in each direction. They're just, right? And you are now standing on the side of the road and you're just watching the thoughts. You notice them. You know what color they are. Each thought is a car, right? Do they have rims? Is it a Ferrari? Whatever. You're just standing on the side of the road observing the cars go by. But that's it. You don't actually pay too much attention to what color or how fast they're driving. You just see them go left and right. Those are all thoughts. Now, you find a way to get into the passenger seat of that car and go on a ride with that thought, that's anxiety. That's anxiety. That's the analogy that I remember hearing, and I was like, I'm going to take it a step further. Right? You're supposed to just notice them. Thoughts aren't bad. Some can be bad.
Right.
But are they actually bad? Or is us harping and focusing on them that's bad?
Yeah.
Right? Because even a good thought, all right, like,
yeah,
you're just watching them. And so just to play on that, you know, we're truly captive to our ideas. I mean, that's someone that ran away with a thought.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it is so important to take our thoughts captive and to understand them and to acknowledge them and to not give any of them more than they deserve because they are just thoughts.
The analogy of cars on the highway, it's like, makes a lot of sense conceptually. How do you apply that, or what do you practice to, I guess, be that?
So I used to get a lot of anxiety. I still do from time to time. Everyone does, I think. But mine used to be really bad. And it's because I didn't observe a thought. It's because I got in the car with it. And then once you do that, it just spins out of control.
Yeah.
All this stuff that's not even happening, that will never come into fruition. So it's mostly about just being mindful, taking a few deep breaths are incredible, and talking to myself, saying, hey, this probably won't even happen. Could, but I mean, like, okay, what if it doesn't?
So you went from kind of being every thought that came through to being able to be the witness on the side of the road.
I'm slowly learning.
Okay.
I have not mastered it.
Yeah.
But I used to give my thoughts a lot of time.
Yeah.
And just, it would spiral.
Yeah.
That's how any anxiety happens. You just can't stop thinking. You can't slow your mind down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So that 2-lane highway is going on in your head.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's when people describe being flooded or overwhelmed. That's what's happening.
Yeah.
Just a million thoughts. Some of the cars are bigger than others, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm learning. I'm definitely learning.
Like upon impact, you heard that analogy and then it was like, okay, I can practice that.
It is one of the most practical things that I heard because it's difficult. You know, there's counting exercises, there's touch exercises, there's, there's people who say eat a really, really sour warhead, something to distract the mind, which is, it works actually.
It's positive distraction.
Yeah.
For sure.
Like take a teaspoon of salt, just really salty, something to interrupt what's happening. Totally works. But that one for me was like, okay, I'm on the highway. Let me just, like, if I can't break away from the thought immediately, let me just sit back and observe it for a second and just talk to myself through it.
Yep.
And these are things we don't learn. Look, my parents didn't teach me this stuff.
Yeah.
No one talked to me about this.
Yeah.
It's kind of a sad shame because there's no one that can deny that anxiety is crippling and it happens to everybody. And we have a mental health crisis of epic proportions. Why don't they teach this stuff in grammar schools? I've heard of it more and more. What are you feeling? How are you feeling? Let's describe the emotions. Yeah. And I think it's really important. While it's important to be decisive and not get stuck in emotions, because emotions can lie all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. My emotion can be causing me to be angry at something that I shouldn't be angry at. Sure. Period. The end. That right there is enough to know that emotions are not accurate. But understanding what they are is like a big deal to calming down these thoughts.
Absolutely.
Because on a day-to-day basis, relationships, business, sales, performance, 98% of the battle's in the mind. 98%, like if you talk about the World Series and the games, they're physically warring. It's a physical competition, but it starts in the mind. And you cannot remove one from the other.
Yep.
And which one has a bigger impact? I think a lot of people would agree that it's the mind.
Yeah, there's a saying out of the Dhammapada. It's like a Buddhist scriptures. It says, the mind is the forerunner. Like all things come from the mind.
I mean, everything. Put it this way. You can't have a physical specimen in sport with a bad, nasty, depressed, anxious mind. She's not gonna perform. That athlete, that finely tuned athletic machine, there's another component that's missing.
Sure.
It all starts in the mind, I would agree.
Yep. There are a couple of mental maps. This is furthering the commentary on Dallas Willard on the quote of we're at the mercy of our ideas, more in like a modern context of like the I think I've heard them referred to as like cultural lies or modern lies that are kind of destroying well-being. And I'll just toss a few up and you can dive in where you want. But there's the Stanford Duck Syndrome. And so what that is shortly is if you imagine a duck swimming in a pond, they're like still and calm on the surface, on the surface, but their legs are just panicking below. So the mental map there is like kind of just keep appearances, but inside you're just like scrambling on all fronts just to kind of keep your head afloat. That's one. The idealization of consumerism, we've talked on that a little bit. The binary mindsets in social and political discourse, those mental maps are causing some funky situations.
And this is actually the start of this series.
Yeah.
Because we have to talk about every one of these, and they're their own 45, 50-minute conversation.
For sure. Multitasking efficiency. The love equals possession myth is a mental map that there's a lot there. I think we can probably spend a day on that. Yeah, so we'll come back to these and unpack kind of these mental maps. What I want to do now is talk about Nietzsche's Revaluation. So Friedrich Nietzsche, right, is a German philosopher, controversial on some fronts, but had some good things to say, I think. One of which, central to his philosophy, is that scientific advancement would outpace human morality, leading to an ethical void. He foresaw that such unchecked progress could ultimately contribute to humanity's downfall, as science without a moral compass has the potential to harm rather than benefit society.
Man, you dropped a banger with 5 minutes left on this thing.
Cliffhanger.
I mean, this guy was writing in the late 1800s.
Yeah.
So he saw all this happening.
Yeah, I saw it.
I mean, I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Scientific advancements with unchecked human morality.
Yep.
And I don't think humanity right now has any idea what its morality is. Everyone has a different idea. It's all broken. It's all bifurcated.
I'm going to throw a stat to that because I think you bring up a good point. The first one, 2019 survey by Gallup said or reported 45% of Americans rated the moral values in the country as really, really poor. There's another one. Pew Research Center in 2020 found the perception of moral decline is prevalent. About 60% of Americans believing that the country was on the wrong track regarding moral standards. I guess those are very vague and almost meta stats and or curiosities, but we're here. What do we do?
Keep asking questions. I have faith that if we keep asking questions, look, I'm not trying to, I will never, I can't save humanity, neither can you.
Yep.
But I can save people a lot of heartache just by sharing my experiences and having them ask themselves the right questions.
Yeah.
And this concept of, I don't want anyone to misconstrue that. I'm not saving anyone.
Sure.
They're not even saving themselves, but they're helping themselves big time. Mm-hmm. And I think all of us as a society, if we ask more questions and really ask ourselves, why are we doing things? Anything. Mm-hmm. What's the aim of this or that? Very controversial, for example. And I'll end with this. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are not going to like this, but what's the value of spending $10 billion a month to see if you could send a rocket up to Mars right now? I know there's value, but we got a broken planet here that can use that kind of money. A lot of hungry, homeless, hurting people. Mm-hmm. I'm just throwing it out there. There needs to be that progress.
Yeah.
They have to explore. Mm-hmm. Like they can never stop. I get it. But we have to ask ourselves, at what cost is that coming? Mm-hmm. I'm just, again, I don't have a strong opinion one way or another because scientific advancement is so crucial and important.
Sure. I think the key word there is left unchecked. That's the whole thing.
I just read about all these rockets we're racing up to Mars, and it's like, that's great. We got kind of a dumpster fire down here on Earth. Mm-hmm. And we can put it out, or we can try. Yeah. You know? Mm-hmm. Mars is like 900 million days away.
Right.
Who wants to do that?
Yeah.
Again, it's super important. Yeah, exploration and innovation, and there's no measure to the amount of technology that we can use here on Earth.
Sure.
From the stuff that's created being sent to go on these crazy missions. I'm sure they have wide applicability.
Yep.
But still cost a lot of money. We got a lot of hurt, broken people here.
Yeah.
Starving people here. It's like that balance.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, man.
Love you.
We have a lot left here, but let's cut.